how did you and Rogan come together for the Man Show? Did you know Joe before that?
No, well, I knew him for probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, just from L.A. doing comedy. And so, yeah, when he was up for it, they made us go through a
chemistry test.
Well, no, Rogan was in. Rogan was in definitely, but he was waiting to find out if NBC would let him out of his Fear Factor contract to do it on the side. So in the meantime, they had 10 of us where we'd pair up and write out a monologue together and perform in front of a fake, studio audience of a few homeless people they drugging off the street. So I was like paired up with Dane Cook for a minute. Patrice O'Neill and I were paired up.
Wow.
He looked at me, he goes, I don't work well with other people. This will be a bonding.
Wow. Anybody else in that group you might
Ralph
recognize?
Garman. It was It was going to be either me and Dane Cook or me and Ralph Garman if Rogan didn't get the okay. But
Ralph was my old roommate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dane was on the Man Show, like as a bit player. I think guys we can't hang with. One of those.
Yes.
Or Museum of Annoying Guys. That was it.
Was he aware of this?
He was an actor. He was portraying not himself, but oversharing drunk guy or whatever it was.
It's funny as I bring up Rogan and Fear Factor. I would always get the call, maybe about the last few seasons of. They would call and gauge my interest in hosting Fear Factor. And what they were doing is it was probably Joe renegotiating a contract, and the way to slow his rolls to go, we talked to Carolla and he's interested at, $15,000 an episode and you're asking for 30. So bring it down. There's a lot of that goes on. It's sort of like David Letterman, right? He could have been followed by Jon Stewart. Now, would you like a 33-year-old Jon Stewart following you?
Nipping at your heels
in the late night thing? So you get the thoroughly unlikable Craig Kilborn. So you go, why the fuck would this guy follow? Craig Kilborn is opposite of Letterman, and he's wildly unlikable. But Letterman's like, I'll have that guy follow me because 5 years of Jon Stewart following you, and now you got to renegotiate.
Yeah,
and they're like,
out.
hey, people like this Stewart guy a lot. There's a lot of that strategy in show business.
Yeah. Did you ever watch our Man Show?
Yeah, I would watch it. I liked a lot of parts of it.
I didn't.
See, for me, look, we were talking about this yesterday, which is as a comedian, you can watch other comedians and go, maybe that didn't get the laugh that they were hoping for, but I can see there's elements. Like I can see there's parts that are
where
working.
They're going, yeah.
Now, maybe you shouldn't be on a big show and doing that. Maybe you should be in a smoky club. But what I'm saying is like, look, it's still you and it's still Joe Rogan. Like you're both interesting, smart. You take approaches to things that are sort of, you sort of flip the script on things and stuff like that. And I was watching, just kind of going, oh yeah, I can see that thought. Like that was interesting what they were doing.
But they'd poke holes. I remember the first day I sat for a run through, and I'm sitting in a chair like this, and the director comes to the voice from God, says, Doug, could you sit up straight and look like you want to be here? And I'm like, that's not what I do.
That's not me.
I slouch and I'm grumpy. That's my thing.
Well, and also what you gotta realize too, it was 4 years of Jimmy and me and Daniel Kellison not listening to anything they said ever, and then you guys come in, you got fresh blood in there where they can finally get on the blower and tell someone
Zoe
what to do.
Was Zoe Friedman involved with yours?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Zoe, I remember the first day we taped.
That's Bud Freeman's daughter.
Oh, wow.
You have to know Joey Coco Diaz.
Right.
We're going to have a big fat Joey Coco Diaz, and we got it on the first episode, or one of the episodes, where when the opening of the show, he bursts through the Paper Man Show thing butt naked and just runs through the audience, and Zoe was like, is this what you call Man Show? This is what the Man Show is to you?
Wow.
And Rogan's like, yes, absolutely.
Like you're impugning the sanctity of the Man Show.
I dealt with her, and I dealt with, I'll think of her I'll think of her name in a second. Her, goddamn, her dad, Chris, will find it. Her dad wrote most popular boxing book of all time.
Oh, you brought this
The
up.
Sweet Science, and I'll think of her name in a second. But yeah, it was
Maybe
very
Liebling?
Nick Torch.
Liebling. Yeah,
Wow.
good call,
From
good
deep.
pull. Yeah, that was very matronly over there. So the man show was the executives on Comedy Central were middle-aged women, if you could picture that.
Okay.
And Debbie Liebling, she had an ass full of Daniel and she had an ass full of Jimmy, but she loved me. And they would always say, call her, Adam. Like, we're not getting anywhere.
sweet
You
talk.
can talk to her. There was a lot of good cop, bad cop. And I would call her and explain to her why, the tuna flavored douche is really not offensive. And here's why, Debbie. Now listen to me. And she would tend to listen a little more to me than she would. I don't know if she liked, I don't know what the thing was with her.
There was
but
a charm.
We got along.
If you just pulled a random 10 people off the street and said, Jimmy Kimmel, Adam Carolla, which one's the good cop, which one's the bad cop, this would be shocking to them.
Well, Jimmy was like pretty headstrong.
Yeah.
And he was like, he literally told the producers, you cannot come on this stage. Like when he was working, when he was like in his zone. And, the thing about comedy is like you go, I think this is funny, and then everyone tries to talk you out of it who isn't funny. Jimmy just would have none of that. That's
like
probably why he is who he is.
I was overly polite. I mean, I did like I was starting to say when they told us what episode they were going to open with, it was like all the worst shit, and I literally got down on the floor and did a children's temper tantrum on my back, stomping. Please don't do that. We're gonna get fucking executed if you put that dog shit. Put that out like the 11th episode. Like, start with something fucking strong that shows a difference there. And they just don't fucking listen. And
yeah. Well, the problem is you gave them a vote, and that's where the danger is. People that don't know it voting on it, and it's pretty epidemic. It's an epidemic in Hollywood. Just lots of. It's a weird business in that you have. The gatekeepers of comedy are the least funny people on the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I used to work on a construction site, the foreman wasn't humping drywall and busting out stucco, but he'd done it all.
Yeah.
He knew how to do it, and he could tell you were doing it wrong.
he could take over for you if you didn't show up.
Yeah, he was 15. His dad had a crew, and he was on it, and all that kind of. These are people that have nothing to do with comedy. I always wanted to do this experiment, which is find, the Nancy Tellem, the head of comedy at ABC or whatever, find people she went to high school with and go, guess who's running the comedy division of ABC? Nancy Tellem. They go, that unfunny bitch. She never made anyone laugh. She was so dour.
Yeah, and they all have business degrees. They're not. They
Yes.
could have been inserted at Morgan Stanley. It didn't have to be comedy.
And that's why if Rogan had been around, because they're as he's intimidating, and you go, he's never gonna fucking hit you. Well, fucking Rogan, man, I wouldn't want to fuck with. Well, it's not like Rogan, but he would provide that presence and that demeanor where I couldn't. I had no fight.
Did he know? He just didn't really care.
Well, he just didn't have the time
Yeah.
to. That guy was like, he would work, 14-hour days on Fear Factor, come to the office for a couple hours, and then still go and do an hour set for nothing at the Comedy Store. And this is machine.
If anybody ever travels outside of the U.S. and you go to the Middle East or you go to
shock.
Mexico,
Yeah.
anywhere, if you go into a kind of a bazaar type place, please, Americans, just it's part of,
Respectfully
they
haggle.
expect it.
Yes,
But
yes.
then you do the math. By the way, you do the math in your head. Sometimes you're like, wait a minute, the dollar, the peso. Wait a minute, I'm negotiating over 33 cents.